Democrats are outraged today because they are America last, and they hate anything that would give the American people pride. The Gulf of America is one of the most important things that we can do this Congress. This is an executive order written by the President of the United States, which, by the way, is president today because the American people rose up and voted against a Democrat Party that was completely America last. Americans have watched Congress week in and week out rename post offices. Democrats vote for it all the time. Democrats aren't afraid to rename anything. They've been renaming military bases because they hate our history and hate our heritage. This is also the same Democrat Party that cheered when their ground troops, Antifa, and radical rioters went throughout American cities and tore down statues like Lincoln and Washington. The Democrat Party doesn't want to preserve America's rich history or promote pride in our country, our lands, our people, our businesses, and yes, our waters, the Gulf of America.
The gentlelady from Georgia is right about one thing. Democrats are outraged because as this president is crashing the global economy, careening us into recession, destroying retirement plans and 401ks, driving up costs for American families on everything from cars to eggs to now us being told we may have to ration toys and dolls this Christmas. As all of that is happening, he's using Congress's Article 1 Trade and Commerce Authority to do it. And what do you hear from Republicans across the aisle about this thing that is wrecking the lives of so many American families? Nothing, worse than nothing. They've tied their own hands with a gimmicky bill that they passed to create a false legislative day that never ends so that they can't even invoke Congress's Article 1 trade authority and put some sensible sideboards on this trade and tariff policy. It is madness. So the gentlelady's right. We are outraged.
I rise in support of H.R. 276, sponsored by Congresswoman Greene of Georgia. Throughout the history of the United States, the executive branch has renamed our public lands and waters. This legislation codifies a portion of President Trump's Executive Order 14172, which directed the Board on Geographic Names to rename the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America. President Trump signed this executive order on his first day in office. Enacting this legislation will help make President Trump's historic action permanent and ensure consistency in references to laws, maps, regulations, and records of the United States. The Gulf of America is critical to the United States because of its energy resources and ecological significance. This renaming symbolizes Republicans' commitment to putting America first and honors the Gulf of America's important role in unleashing American energy and our nation's return to greatness. I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When I call this a deeply unserious bill, I think I'm probably being charitable. It is unserious, and it comes from a Republican majority that is either unable or unwilling to do the real work of Congress. In the first disastrous 100 days of President Trump's second term in office, we have seen him sow chaos and distraction in every direction. This deeply corrupt and unhinged leader has put his biggest campaign donor and the wealthiest man in the world in charge of slashing programs that millions of Americans depend on, from food assistance to nuclear safety to disaster response, all in the name of quote-unquote efficiency. They have indiscriminately fired thousands of federal workers like this is some dystopian reboot of The Apprentice, except in this episode, they're filling the government with unqualified sycophants, and they're running around firing meteorologists and health experts and emergency responders, people who keep our government running. And today, in the face of all of that, all of this chaos that our Republican colleagues don't want to talk about, at least we're hearing them engage in some debate over this unserious bill about renaming the Gulf of Mexico, which I suppose is an improvement, because for the past couple of weeks in the markup hearings on their disastrous budget reconciliation bill, they've been unwilling to debate it all. It's just been silence from our Republicans as they move through one of the most reckless bills in American history, the same silence as they duck their constituents by canceling town halls and avoiding media inquiries. So instead of debating that very important and destructive legislation, they are speaking up today about this deeply unserious bill to rename a body of water. We wish that our Republican colleagues would join us in asking the question that's on more and more Americans' mind. What the heck is going on? This administration is not draining the swamp. They're torching the country. The global economy is in chaos. We are teetering on the brink of recession. Administration officials are telling us we should perhaps prepare to ration dolls and toys this Christmas, and yet they want to debate renaming the Gulf of Mexico. You know, Congress that more and more appears to just be a joke is now advancing a bill that literally started off as a joke. That's right. The first person to publicly suggest the name change was not Donald Trump or the author of this bill. It was comedian Stephen Colbert on Comedy Central. It was a joke back when the Deepwater Horizon oil spill was happening. And you remember, folks, that 11 people died in that disaster. Entire ecosystems collapsed. The Louisiana coast was wrecked, along with industries and livelihoods that depend on that Gulf Coast ecosystem, all devastated. And Colbert used the fake name Gulf of America to satirize the absurdity of oil-soaked nationalism. And now here we are, 15 years later, in a Congress that apparently thinks they have no real work to do, turning a late-night punchline into the legislative business of the United States House. Look, I would love to say this is just a one-off, but it fits a disturbing trend. Again and again, this majority keeps replacing science with slogans, governance with grievance, and policymaking with cheap performance art. The truth is, this bill won't fix a single problem. It does absolutely nothing to help the Gulf Coast. It won't create a single job. It's not going to fix our climate crisis. It's just dumb. The only thing this bill will do is waste time and your taxpayer dollars to stroke the ego of a guy who sharpied a hurricane map on live TV. Now, in committee, I offered an amendment that would actually advance the value of efficiency. Because, you know, if this is all about stroking the ego of one man, if it's all about cultish sycophancy, why do it in a piecemeal way with all these individual bills to put his face on Mount Rushmore and on the $100 bill? We actually have legislation from folks across the aisle to do all these things, to rename Dulles Airport, to do national holidays. Why not go all the way? We know that's where this is all heading anyway, since everything is in service of one man's fragile ego. So why not rename the entire planet Trump? At least that would be efficient. We would hurry up and get to the inevitable outcome of where this Republican Congress is taking us. But look, if you like this unserious bill, there's another deal for you, because Eric and Don Jr. are selling Gulf of America hats on their website for $50 a pop. One hat even says Gulf of America, yet another Trump development. And the sales pitch for one includes, and I quote, "as seen on President Donald J. Trump." And get your meme coin while you're at it. And remember, all of these grifts are for a limited time. They won't last much longer. The American people deserve much, much better, folks. A recent Fox News poll, yes, Fox, showed that a big majority opposes the name change for the Gulf of Mexico. 67%. Americans know a joke when they see one, even if this Republican Congress doesn't. I reserve the balance of my time.
Reserves. Members are reminded to refrain from engaging in personalities toward the President. The gentleman from Arkansas.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 3 minutes to the gentlewoman from Georgia, the lead sponsor of this legislation, Ms. Greene.
The gentlewoman from Georgia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm honored to be here today in front of the American people as we debate the merits of the Gulf of America Act. This would rename the body of water formerly known as the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. This is such an important thing to do for the American people. The American people deserve pride in their country, and they deserve pride in the waters that we own, that we protect with our military and our Coast Guard, and all of the businesses that prosper along these waters. But Democrats today are outraged. They're outraged because they love the cartels more than any other people in the world, more than the American people. They spent the past 4 years funding and voting for policies that ripped our borders open and allowed our country to be invaded by millions and millions of people. Drugs and fentanyl that murdered over 300 Americans every single day, human trafficking, child sex trafficking, terrorists, and millions of people that we have no idea where they are in the interior of this country. Section 1 of the executive order lays out the purpose and policy and directive stating, it is the national interest to promote the extraordinary heritage of our nation and ensure future generations of American citizens celebrate the legacy of our American heroes, the naming of our national treasures, including breathtaking natural wonders and historic works of art, should honor the contributions of visionary and patriotic Americans in our nation's rich past.
Live from Washington, D.C., Saturday Night Live. You can't make this up. Mr. Speaker, I rise in perplexion. I first want to say how much respect I have for Mr. Westerman. He is my dear friend and one of our best members. My. Doing a lot of work this time, Bruce. Is this infantile bill to rename the Gulf of Mexico really this House's top priority? I heard the gentlelady say it's going to solve all the problems, of course, if we name it the Gulf of America. Golly day, why didn't we think of that? The economy is shrinking for the first time since COVID-19. Costs are going up. I think Saturday Night Live just called me. They want me on. Costs are going up. Small businesses are going under. American families are worried they won't be able to keep the lights on, keep food on the table, and keep the roof on their head. They're happy about, of course, Gulf of America. That'll do it. Millions of Americans risk losing their health insurance if Republicans' Medicaid cuts go through. Yet Republicans think this juvenile legislation is the best use of this House's time. This is the only thing we're doing today, folks. What a sick joke this is. Republicans worry about 400-year-old words on a map. I worry about families in every community in America who's struggling to get by. This bill is obviously a distraction, a joke. Where is Trump's one big, beautiful bill that we keep hearing so much about? The one that cuts taxes for the wealthiest among us, threatens health care for millions, and pulls the rug out from under working Americans. The majority still hasn't been able to put it on the floor. That's how divided, dysfunctional, and divisive they are. My dear friend, the late Elijah Cummings, with whom some of you served, said, we're better than this. The American people are counting on us to be better than this. We ought to be debating legislation to bring down costs, to pay our debts, to fix our broken immigration system. Instead, MAGA Republicans waste our time with this childish drivel. Not only that, they give it a prime spot on the floor schedule. This is the only thing we're doing for America today, renaming the Gulf of Mexico. May I have one more minute?
I yield the gentleman a minute.
Renaming the Gulf of Mexico, as if that's going to solve the problems. Very frankly, my self-confidence in America does not need that. I don't need Canada to be the 51st state. I don't need to invade Greenland, and I don't need the Gulf of America to have confidence in the greatest country on earth. Are we so small? Do we feel so belittled by the rest of the world that we have to do this silly, silly, silly step? We are made smaller, hear me, we are made smaller by this effort. Vote rationally. That'll be a no.
I reserve.
California.